Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sherman and this is Sherman Spectrum, where we get to talk about LGBTQ content all around the world. Now, I know it's been a while since my last video. Things have been kind of hectic, but I am back with a new video because it has literally been keeping me up for the past month and a half, and that is the center of the world, or center of my world. So the center of my world is a 2016 German film written and directed by Jakob M. Edva, and it is also based on the adult fantasy young adult novel from 1998. I need to do more research. But anyway, I recently watched the film again, considering the fact that I watched this film back when it came out in 2016, and I really thought that this is such a beautiful film that I really wanted to talk about. Also, the film stars Lewis Hoffmann, who most of you guys might know from the German Netflix TV series Dark. Now, Dark, in my opinion, is one of the best TV shows on Netflix, so you definitely know that this film is going to be good because Lewis Hoffmann is one of the best German actors out there. The film also stars Yannick Schumann, who plays the other main protagonist or love interest in Phil's life, who you guys might know from I can't remember. He does have a Netflix show. He does have a show on Netflix as a supporting character, and I think it's Tribes of Europa, which also happens to be a German TV show. Now, let's take a quick dive in this film and sort of break it down kind of quickly. Now, the film stars our main protagonist, Phil, who from the beginning of the film we can kind of see he is coming from camp, and when he finally returns home from summer camp, he kind of notices that things are very different between him and his mother and his sister. Now, his mother goes by the name of Glass, which is a name that she herself has chosen for herself, as she doesn't want to be confined by the typical societarical strains or the norms of society of being called mom. So she prefers to be called Glass. Now, his sister Diane, who also happens to be his twin sister, Phil and Diane had a really close relationship, and they would always talk about everything. Considering the amount of trauma that they have experienced with a mom who happens to be bipolar, it's not really mentioned in the film if she has bipolar, but I think it's clearly obvious that she has really highs and she has real lows, and this sort of affects their childhood, especially that with their relationship with their non-existent father, who they don't know, because Glass has had countless of men in their lives. So not only does Phil have to now come back from camp and deal with this really strange energy in their house, he doesn't really know what to do. So when he approaches his sister Diane, she seems to be really standoffish. She just gives him like one-word answers: everything's fine, I'm cool, I gotta go. And there's definitely something has definitely changed within their relationship. Now, so to avoid all of this confusion, he spends most of his time with his best friend Katya, also known as Kat, who seems to be the only person in the film that he really does hang out with. And you know, they do a lot of things together: fun, shopping, dancing. You know, they really seem to have this really close relationship, and I think that Katya seems to be the kind of friend that really picks Phil up whenever he's feeling down. She's vibrant, she's energetic, and I would definitely say she is the kind of friend that you'd want around, you know, just to like distract you from your everyday life situations. Now, something does happen later in the film with Kat, which is just bad, but in the beginning of the film she does seem to be this caring person, or this caring friend for Phil. Now, on the first day of school enters our second main protagonist, who is of course Yannick Schumann, who plays the love interest Nicholas. Now, Nicholas is drop dead gorgeous. Like, this particular scene that happens kind of reminds me of the French film I Am Jonas, where Nathan walks into the class and also catches the attention of Jonas. And the exact same thing happens here in this film, where Nicholas walks in, with the sort of vampire Edward Cullen hairstyle, wind blowing kind of attitude or kind of energy. And immediately Phil is attracted to Nicholas. Now, because of his attraction, he ends up low-key stalking him, literally watching him every day at athletic practice or track practice. I don't know what's it called in Germany, or track, you can say. And he just ends up watching him over and over and over. And eventually Nicholas begins to take notice and approaches him and asks him, I've been seeing you here every day, and will you come tomorrow? And he sort of says, yes, I'll come back tomorrow. Not really clear why Nicholas is asking him to come back, but he does eventually end up blowing off Kat to do this. So he completely lies to her and says that he's got to go home, when eventually he goes back to school, and sort of something very R-rated happens in the showers. And this is sort of where the love interest between Phil and Nicholas begins. And it sort of becomes a secret because he kind of feels really ashamed to tell Kat. But he does eventually tell his mom, he does tell his girlfriend, and he does tell his, I want to say aunts, because there is these other two women in the show which are also lesbian, who happen to be female lovers. And one thing that I do like about this show is that it treats the concept of the LGBTQ or being gay or being queer as something normal. Phil being gay is not the main point of the film. It's not something that is like sort of pushed in your face in a propaganda gay agenda kind of way. He's really just there to exist as a character who happens to be gay and attracted to another man. And it's never really the issue, because there's quite a lot of other issues involved within the film. So he does manage to ask his mom, Glass, who happens to be bipolar, as I mentioned, what is the center of the world, or how do you know what your center of the world is? And she kind of gives him really solid advice for someone who has actually who isn't the best person to give advice when it comes to being in a relationship with men, considering the fact that her not dating men, or her dating men, or bringing in every single different kind of men into their lives, have definitely left Phil and Diane feeling kind of strained. And she isn't, as I mentioned, the most traditional mom in a sense. She doesn't really know how to cook. As I mentioned, there are days where she's really warm and there are days where she's really cold, and sort of locks herself in her room, avoiding all conversation with her kids. But when Phil asks her what is the center of the world, she kind of tells him that it's different for everybody and you kind of just need to figure it out for yourself. Now, Phil, being very naive and thinking that he's in love, thinks that Nicholas is his center of his world because it's his first gay love experience. He's meeting this drop-dead gorgeous man, and I can say that because, Yannick Skuman is an openly out and proud gay actor, and he's also of age, so, he is super attractive, and it's clearly obvious why Phil falls head over heels for Nicholas. But the relationship between Nicholas and Yannick is, at least from our perspective as a viewer, we can clearly see that he is not in love with Phil. He is attracted to Phil, yes. And I think this sort of introduces us to the bisexual element of the film, as the film really does deal with lesbians and gays and bisexuality, because we kind of get the feeling that he's sort of very standoffish as well with Phil. Phil wants to get to know more about Nicholas, where Nicholas just says there's nothing to tell, there's nothing interesting about me. And when Nicholas eventually makes a visit or pays a visit to Phil to introduce himself to Phil's mom, Phil is kind of nervous at this point because, of course, he knows the kind of person that his mom is. She's very, eccentric. where when Phil asks if he can pay a visit to Nicholas, he says that, you know, his mom is more of a drinker and his farm is never really there. His father spends a lot of his time visiting, so it's clearly obvious he does not want to let Phil in his life. It's not really clear or expressed why. As I mentioned, there is a book if you guys would like to get a little bit more detailed based on the characters' perspectives. So I haven't read the book yet. I think I will probably do that after this video. You know, I am currently reading another book for another film, which is coming out later this year, and I think you guys know what that is. But the relationship that we kind of get to see from Phil and Nicholas is definitely one-sided, and it's definitely coming from Phil. Now, something does happen that I should mention, and sort of kind of two things actually kind of happen. So Diane, as I mentioned, is Phil's sister who used to be really close with Phil. They had a really close bonding relationship, and because of the fact that they've never really known their father, at a very young age, the film sort of does this whole shifting back thing, showing their lives as kids, showing their lives as teenagers, and how their lives sort of came to be due to all of the, you know, absentee fathers that they've had. And they sort of create this list of all of the names that they can literally remember. And on this list, or it's a list that their mother has made with all of the men that she's been with, and one of the names is scratched out, who they believe happens to be their father. So whenever Phil would ask his mom, who is their father? Can you please tell me? She's really not very comfortable expressing who their father is, either because, you know, they're the father of their kids, he is the father of their children, and, you know, she really truly did love him, but she does sort of give him a little bit of information about the type of person that he was, and that he's much very similar like Diane. You know, he's very vibrant, and he sort of has the ability to attract insects and bugs into him or something like that, which is kind of a metaphor for just saying that he was very vibrant and he attracted a lot of attention from a lot of people, and that she knew while she was pregnant that, you know, he would definitely be a lot of work to deal with, if that makes any sense. But anyway, so we eventually find out that Phil and Diane were meant to have a younger brother. So in the beginning of the film, or throughout, or in the past, their mother Glass was pregnant. So it turns out that an accident happens where her Glass sort of has a miscarriage, and this kind of also, this is the first part where it sort of divides a ripple between Diane and Phil, because, you know, not only are they constantly losing men in their lives, you know, now they've lost their baby brother who has died in a miscarriage. But we later find out that it was actually Diane who had given her mom a particular type of plant which is quite poisonous, and if you drink it in heavy doses, it can lead to miscarriages or cramps. And this has sort of been the secret that she's been keeping all of these years, and happens to be the secret that she told her mom when Phil was on holiday, or when Phil was at summer camp. And her reason for explaining this is because, you know, she felt that her mother was taking away their chances of being happy with every other single man in their lives. And when she wanted to give this to her mom, she kind of wanted to take something away from her, but she was not thinking that it would result in a miscarriage with their younger child. Now, once that is finally resolved, or ish, you know, it's really up to Phil really kind of makes it clear to Diane and Glass that he's moving out, and they sort of need to work it out. And while this happens, he ends up moving in with his lesbian aunts, let's just call them that, with his lesbian aunts, and tries to make a visit to Nicholas. And when he eventually approaches Nicholas's house, he kind of discovers something, and he kind of sees Nicholas and Kat, his best friend, doing something that they were not supposed to be doing. and ends up avoiding them for the past couple of weeks. And then eventually Katya tries to reach out to Phil, asking where is he or where has he been, but he refuses to speak to her whatsoever. And the exact same thing happens with Nicholas, who also eventually ends up approaching Phil, and then Phil sort of just tells him that he saw them, you know, having sex in his shed, and Phil or Nicholas just sort of acts as if it's okay. He kind of tells Phil that he needs Phil in his life, but he also needs Kat. So this is where we can sort of see the bisexuality aspect of the film. But how can you do that? He literally and the best part of the film is where he actually just walks away, sort of gaining some self-respect for a change, and just, you know, it ends right there with Nicholas. He's never seen or heard or mentioned of ever again. Now, I just want to add, like, I am not a person who would judge friendships, but what Katya did was kind of messed up. And I get it, as friends, we all make mistakes. You know, we cheat on our boyfriends with our best friends or vice versa. But I think for what Kat did was really, really not okay. And, you know, also another thing that he does is he sort of also just cuts Kat out of his life as well. And I think that goes to show that, you know, it's not quite the same compared to how he felt, because he definitely loved Nicholas, and this was something that Kat knew, and she kind of took advantage of that. I mean, yes, he is attractive, but still, you know, if she was truly a friend to Phil, she would have told Nicholas, you know what, no, you know, Phil really loves you, and as hot as you are, we're not doing this. But instead, she goes behind his back and sleeps with him. This sort of, you know, with Kat and Nicholas out of the way, sort of gives Phil this whole new perspective of what the center of the world actually means to him. And he kind of realizes that it's his family, that it's his mom, it's his sister, and it's his two aunts who sort of wish him well as he finally makes a trip to the US, where I do believe he is trying to find his father. We're not actually quite sure, but before he does leave, his mom does approach him and finally gives him the name of his father, who I do believe Phil is trying to find within the US, but I also think that he's also just doing it to get away. And this was sort of kind of something interesting to see, that his mom was finally able to let this secret go, to give him something on his journey, you know, to kind of put it at peace so we can finally start focusing on the present. All right, that's it for this video. I really think that you guys should watch this film. It is amazing. It is beautiful. It is a coming of age film done right. You know, it has its issues, you know, but the acting, in my opinion, is really solid, especially the performance from Lewis and Yannick, and Diane as well. So if you guys would like to know more, please remember to like and subscribe and hit that bell notification so I can release more amazing queer content around the world for you guys. My name is Sherman. This is Sherman Spectrum, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.